In the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, there are multiple sorcerers and curse users that make up Jujutsu Society, and with each of them comes their own unique curse technique. Almost every sorcerer in the Jujutsu world, minus some specific examples, are born with an innate technique either from their own individuality that manifests over time, or the technique is inherited through the sorcerer's bloodline. The complexity of these techniques range from simple fire attacks to full-on paragraph necessary explanation techniques like Southern Constellation. However, one of the more confusing curse techniques that also happens to be one of the more postmodern and younger techniques in the world is projection sorcery. Projection sorcery uses the animation style of 24 frames per second to create an entire ability that revolves around using these 24 frames to either benefit the user of the technique or inconvenience the user's opponent. How exactly does this work? Projection sorcery allows the user to trace a set pattern of motion along a 24-point plan, ensuring that whatever is plotted along this 24-point plan occurs in full succession. The user of the technique will then follow this plan along the 24 plotted points, allowing the user to perform massive acrobatic feats or move long ranges in small amounts of time, as long as the plotted motion does not break the laws of physics. For example, let's say the user wants to move from point A to point B, that is 24 meters away. By using projection sorcery, instead of the user moving fluidly to point B, the user would jolt point by point, meter by meter, along each plotted point until reaching the final destination plot point within 1 full second. This is the explanation for how users like Naobito and Naoya are able to achieve subsonic levels of speed, as by effectively programming these 24 frames, they can boost themselves through movements way faster than normal. Which brings me to the biggest advantage of this strategy, which is that this speed buff can be stacked. This leads into the other law of projection sorcery, which is that the speed of the user will be captured into the acceleration of the 24 frame plot. In layman's terms, once a speed boost is gained from the first use, if projection sorcery is used again to reach an even further point, the new speed of the second plot will be doubled on top of the speed boost gained from the original plot. This can be repeated multiple times, resulting in brilliant speeds from constantly multiplying the acceleration second over second. As far as how this technique can affect the opponent, when 24 frames are programmed out by the user, anyone touched by the user must abide by the pre-programmed motion. So if the opponent is touched by the user and does not follow the 24 frames that the user has plotted out, the opponent will be frozen in place for a full second. To everyone else, that frozen opponent will take the appearance of a frozen portrait, almost like a freeze frame of sorts, while to the victim, it feels like a full second has been skipped, and the effect is very disorienting. And this full second that they're frozen, they're at the mercy of the technique caster. With that being said, the user must also fully complete the 24 frame plot as well, else the user also suffer from the freeze frame clause. The main advantages of this technique involve the freedom it gives the user to amplify their speed, as well as expand their range of movements, which is why someone like Naobito was hailed as the fastest sorcerer alive, behind Satoru Gojo, of course. This effect can also benefit the user's destructive power. As seen in the battle with Maki, Naoya is able to cause catastrophic damage to the surrounding area from the level of force he is using to throw Maki through the ground and mountains around them. Taking all of this into account, the freeze frame condition is what makes the technique the most problematic, creating nigh impossible odds for any opponent that is unaware of or unable to figure out how projection sorcery works, forever at the mercy of constantly freezing if they are unable to follow the user's program movements after falling into their trap. However, this luxury is also given to the opponent, as if the opponent is able to understand the pre-plotted motion and also abide by it, it is possible they can find an opening once their motions are free of the 24 frames. This is shown when Maki is able to end Naoya in just one punch after she is able to place herself in a favorable position after Naoya's 24th frame comes to an end. Granted, this is not something that's exactly easy to do by any means, and was really only capable by a superhuman Maki after having multiple opportunities to make mistakes in her first attempts at understanding the pre-plotted motions. If the user intends to end their opponent quickly before they can catch on, or can intelligently plot their movements out to not leave any openings, they can almost completely eliminate this disadvantage. Projection sorcery is one of the Zenin clan's bloodline curse techniques, a relatively newer technique that was born with the coming age of animation in Naobito Zenin and was passed on to his son Naoya Zenin. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like. I really appreciate you making it all the way to the end. You know I appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. And the Twitter to stay up to date with what I'm doing. Peace.